All right, good afternoon, and thank you for coming to our second Public Relations Practitioners Roundtable that we've had for this COM317 class. Most of you know me. I'm Dr. Bob Powell. I'm the Professor of Communication in the Department of Creative Media here at Thomas More University, and I want to thank you for coming. Feel free to ask any questions you like. We do have refreshments at the back if you're thirsty or your stomach's growling a little bit, help yourself. But I wanted to start off by introducing our panel today. We have Shannan Boyer, President and Founder of Scooter Media. Also Sarah Brookbank, who's Scooter Media's Integrated Communications Manager. Melissa Morandi is Marketing and Communications Director at the City of Bellevue. And Laura Sipple is the Assistant Vice President for Marketing and Communication here at Thomas More. So let's give them a round of applause and welcome them to Ziegler Auditorium. And so let's start off. Shannan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what Scooter Media does?
So as you mentioned, my name is Shannan Boyer. I own Scooter Media. We're a public relations agency in Covington. We've been around for almost 14 years. We really focus on PR, social, email marketing, video for social. We have a team of 13 folks doing work down there. I've been practicing for just over 20 years. I guess that's really the top line, who I am and who Scooter is. I'll turn it over to Sarah.
And hi, I'm Sarah Brookbank. I work with Shannan over at Scooter. I've been there for 4 years as Integrated Communications Manager. Sorry, the title is still a little new to me. I work with our clients to do PR work and social media work. I also manage and run a podcast for one of my clients. And I do a little bit of graphic design work. My background's in journalism. I worked with the Cincinnati Enquirer for 5 years before switching and jumping ship over to public relations.
And I'm Melissa Morandi. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for the City of Bellevue. And I've been there for the past 5 years. And I do our social media, our public relations, our branding, our events, just a little bit of everything. It's a very small team, so I get to, have a lot of fun.
Hi, I'm Laura Sipple. Here at Thomas More, do the marketing and communication with a team of 3 full-time workers, and we have 1 graduate assistant. So anything from television commercials, paid advertising on the social and digital side, print ads, radio ads, internal flyers, brochures, you name it, it comes out of our office, and we handle it here for Thomas More. A lot of the times, our Director of Comms and PR, she'll handle some of the talking points for President Chillo. So if you see him at commencement or during some of the General Assembly days, some of his speaking engagements, she helps with those and works with a lot of the local media to set up interviews for professors, President Chillo, etc. So every day is a little bit different. I started my career in Central Virginia for higher ed marketing, worked there for 23 years, and transitioned to St. Elizabeth Healthcare, where I did marketing for the oncology and women's health service lines, and now I'm here at Thomas More.
Very good. So maybe each of you could take just a few minutes and tell us how you got started in public relations.
I will say for me, I fell into it. It was a very tiny portion of my job. I actually worked in education at the beginning, and part of my job was to market my education initiatives and figure out how to get media attention. And so it started there. I'm sort of self-taught. I went to Northern Kentucky University before they had a public relations program, and so I'm very homegrown. I fell in love with it so much that I went and worked at a PR agency for 7 years in Cincinnati called Wordsworth. They're still around today. And that's really how I fell into it and the love for it. I graduated with a communications study generalist sort of degree at my time.
My path was kind of roundabout as well. Like I said, my background's in journalism. I got a journalism degree from the University of Kentucky, went right into that field working up here in Northern Kentucky, worked with the Cincinnati Enquirer, and worked on their trending team. So I was working a lot with our social media manager, doing a lot of social specific stories and doing SEO and different things like that. I was looking to kind of make a pivot out of news, and I applied for a social media job at Scooter Media. So that was like full service social media manager, creating content calendars, posting content calendars, doing community moderation and things like that. And other miscellaneous things for our client needs. Like I said, the podcast. As I work on these teams at Scooter, a lot of our client teams, we have a PR person and we have a social person. It just depends on how big our team is, because for a lot of our clients, we're doing both. Some we're just doing one or the other. And I had mentioned that I was really interested in maybe trying to do PR. One of the reasons that I applied at Scooter is because I had worked with the agency when I was a reporter, knew they were great, and had worked with them in the past. And I was working with all these people on the PR team, and I was like, well, I can write a press release, obviously. I know how to write a news article. I can do the press release, and had mentioned to Shannan I was interested in doing more of the public relations work in addition to the social media work. She gave me a project with one of our clients, and I fell in love with it. And so now I'm doing PR for a few more clients, and also doing the social media stuff. So it's really fun to kind of work with our clients holistically on a communication strategy, and making sure they're putting their best foot forward with PR and with social media.
And my journey was a little unconventional, kind of like Shannan. I fell into it and fell in love with it. I have a degree in fashion merchandising from the University of Kentucky. I moved to New York right after I graduated from college and worked in a few fashion production and design houses. And then when I finally moved back to Northern Kentucky, I started my own children's clothing brand and lifestyle brand, and I really had to learn how to market and do all of that stuff. And through a lot of volunteer work and running events and doing social media for different nonprofits, I ended up at the City of Bellevue, and I absolutely love it.
Well, similar to both of you, my background was in journalism. So in undergrad, I graduated with that degree, started working for the university as a graphic designer. We were a smaller university at that time. It's much larger now, but then wore a lot of different hats. So the role that I had was working directly for one of the founders and the chancellor of the university. So he did a lot of different engagements. So wearing different hats in a small team, you just pick up on different things. Every place I've worked has been a faith-based institution. And so looking back on seeing how the Lord just prepared me for every step of the way, sometimes you may not know the who, what, where, when, why of what you're doing, but then each thing that I did prepared me for that next step. Now I'm managing a team that has a director of comms and PR, and had I not had the experience that I had prior, I probably couldn't do what I'm doing now as efficiently or effectively. So take advantage of every opportunity. When I was in college, I worked on the yearbook. I did some of the writing and the design for that. I know yearbooks are kind of a thing of the past, but if there's opportunities for you, that let me interview some of the guests that would come to the university when there was concerts for student engagement and student life, when there were guest speakers for the overall big convocations. That gave me access to them and gave me that experience. So take advantage of every opportunity. You really don't know where it may lead you in the future, or how the Lord might connect those dots for you in the future too.
Thank you. For each of you, which aspect of public relations do you feel has been the most fulfilling for you? Is it the creative part, or is it the business part? Because we kind of look at both those aspects in this class, and why?
Man, I think that's such a tough question, because I think one of the things that you'll pick up from this group is that we all get to do a little bit of everything, and there's so much variety in the job. And for me, that's what I love about it. So to choose one, I always say, I don't know what I'd do if I couldn't be PRing. Like, I genuinely love what I do. For me, it is, I think, public relations. I was an athlete in school, and I'm pretty competitive, and I find that a lot of PR people tend to be competitive, and I call it the thrill of the kill. I love finding the story, finding the right place, seeing the impact you can have by what you're doing in real time, whether that's getting food donated or driving attendance to an event. I get a charge from that. And so while I do own a business, that part is not as fulfilling as getting to do the PR, getting to work on a team with other creatives and come up with ideas and solve problems and tell stories. For me, it's the PR part. If I couldn't be, as I say, PRing, I'd be really unfulfilled, I think, in what I do.
I think I'm kind of the same way. My background's in journalism. The storytelling part of what we get to do for our clients is really fulfilling, finding a way to be able to tell that story in a broad sense to a community that it needs to reach, especially when we work a lot with nonprofit clients. That's really great. When we know we can get a really good hit or a really good placement and we see an increase in donations, or you get somebody to help sponsor an event, stuff like that is really fun. Also, I love seeing a print placement. I really live for those as a print journalism girly. So I really love the practice of it and the storytelling aspect.
Yeah, it's hard. For me, I love the creativity and the relationship building. I really like creating magical moments for the community and bringing something that's, quote, boring like government and making it exciting for everybody is really what drives me. I definitely get a little thrill out of that.
I'm a creative at heart. My original job was in design, so I think the creative part, there's always going to be parts of your jobs that you like better than others, but I think really thinking of it more of that relationship building. It's not just a one and done, not just if you get that great placement, you have that ongoing relationship. So being able to continue that and find new ways of telling the stories and sharing the stories and the great things that are happening with the nonprofits, with the university here is really exciting, and that keeps it going all the time.
With the development of social media and the lasting impacts of the pandemic, how have the role of events played in your public relations work? Actually getting out into the community and engaging with them directly.
Well, so when the City of Bellevue hired me, it was July of 2020. They said, one of the reasons we're hiring you is to bring us out of COVID. On the first Friday of every month, Bellevue has an event called First Fridays. And it was like 3 days before their July 1st Friday when they hired me. And they were like, we need to think of a way to get people out because no one had come out at this point. But events for us are a really cost-effective way to bring positive attention to our city and what we're doing. And they have been the driving force behind what we do in Bellevue.
When I think about COVID and events, for us, it was a pivot to everything went online and trying to figure out how to engage people through Zoom and fundraise through Zoom events and those sorts of things. We have a client and we do over 100 events a year. And so leveraging digital platforms is a key part to engaging and reaching and finding those audiences, to connecting with them where they are and getting them to show up and come out. And so it is a key pillar of the work that we're doing is what is that social element, what is that online element, and it is a very key strategy and tactic that is part of our toolbox for all our clients, whether it's about events, fundraising, whatever it might be.
Similar to some of your stories during 2020, my big project at St. Elizabeth Healthcare was the grand opening of the new cancer center. So it had been under construction for several years, and of course you want to have a big open house and tours. Well, with social distancing, that wasn't possible. So how are we able to bring the community in to something like that that would benefit them? So it really, I think, you have plan A, plan B. I think we went all the way through plan Z and back again to plan A. So that was, again, in October. We were hopeful of, well, maybe things might change, but it didn't. So what we ended up doing was subscription boxes were really big then, of getting the monthly, the quarterly ones. We put together an at-home grand opening virtual kit. We were able to partner with Skyline. They did a ways to fight cancer, I think it was, where some of the proceeds went back to the Cancer Center. We partnered with some of the organizations, Cancer Family Care and Cancer Support Community, that were part of the Cancer Center. They do a demo teaching kitchen, and they would have nutrition classes. We had recipe cards where they could follow along, but then tune in virtually for them to do the demos live. So we just had to think differently. So being able to pivot no matter what, I think events will always be a big part. It's just keeping up with how they might change. So maybe there are in-person components, but there's also virtual components. How can you leverage social? How can you bring all these things together to meet that audience? I'm sure you've talked a lot about the target audience and knowing what they want, when they want, and how they want, so you can get all of that to them.
How has technology allowed the customers that you work for, as well as entrepreneurs, to own their own media in terms of, can they say they actually own it if they have to put it out on the web, for example? Because a lot of the analytics are driven by algorithms. So maybe you could speak to that just a little bit.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, you are at the mercy of the platform, right? There's owned media, earned media, paid media. I think people forget about how important owned is, which is your website, your blog content. You have unlimited access to being able to share and tell stories the way you want, how you want. But you are at the mercy of the platforms when you are looking at streaming things. The Facebook algorithm and how it is yesterday is different than how it is today, and how the Meta platform looks and operates. I think people in terms of owned forget about the importance of email marketing. I will tell you, it is one of the most impactful ways to reach people for one of our clients. Social is great and other things, but I can send an email and boom, I will get 35 event registrations that afternoon, and you can't take away my list of people from me, right? Facebook, Instagram, TikTok controls who I reach and when I reach them, if I even reach them and they're in my market. So it is really important to understand all of the different avenues, what control you have, so that you can leverage them each to accomplish what you're trying to do, because you are at the mercy of all of the platforms, even the email platforms, right? In terms of how much you have to pay to use them based on your list size, what you can do, the spam filters, those sorts of things.
Yeah, I would just stress, I think the email marketing is really big, and making sure that you know where to reach each of your audiences is really big. I know we, as an agency, were kind of sent into a panic last year with the TikTok getting sold thing, and then they shut TikTok down. Like, we have our own TikTok page that we use. That's not something that's like a core of what's driving business for us personally. But if you think about like restaurants and different businesses that are driving clientele to them through specifically like a TikTok page, and you're getting your sales and your business through there, through like the TikTok shop and stuff like that, you really do have to make sure that you have a comprehensive communications strategy with especially a sales funnel if you're that kind of business. And that is not something that I am super versed in, but it is definitely really important to make sure that you own that. And the other thing is making sure that you have copies of your content. Especially if you're doing social media work, we have had issues where if you're filming in platform, that content doesn't necessarily save to your phone. You have to make sure you back that up, because if you lose those files, you have to repeat that huge filming process again. We have a client right now that our team is working on doing some short video and social media video, and they were like, oh yeah, we post all this stuff, it's so great. But if you don't own that content, like, you can't reuse it. It's just gone forever. And then you have to repeat the process all over again. And that can go for B-roll, that can go for photos, and goes for pretty much like any type of digital content. You just got to make sure you save it. That's something I've been preaching to clients lately.
If you work with vendors too, that's something to keep in mind, that depending on the vendor that you work with, who owns that content, especially if it's a video production company and photos, do you have the rights to it, or does that individual and that production company own that? along with social channels I've run into in different roles that I've been in, coming into accounts that have already been created, but yeah, we don't know the admin password. That was 3 people ago. And that it seems so simple and so basic, but trying to get in touch with anyone at Meta is virtually impossible. So trying to take ownership of your account back if you don't have access to that password, or if nobody knows who that first admin was that created the account 5, 10 years, whatever it might be. So again, some of the simplest basic things can really save you and ensure that ownership that you have and avoid legal issues down the road later.
Does it pay to produce first and then distribute on social media rather than go live on social media with the materials? And Sarah, since you do podcast, is that the case for that?
So it's changing a little bit in terms of social media and like what platforms allow you to do. So when I was in the Inquirer, we used to go Facebook Live from like everything. You would go, you know, like if I were at a crime scene or if I were at a press conference, you can go Facebook Live and go straight live. And Facebook doesn't allow you to do that anymore. So a lot of live video doesn't really happen, but like a lot of people still, if you think about like an Instagram story, that's kind of live. You can do that in the moment, or you can, obviously you can post content. I think a lot of people are, and my recommendation would be make sure you have the content, like especially for content that's going to stay around for a while. So like an Instagram story, I think you're good to just like post a one-off if that's something that you're doing for a client. Like our client that has a ton of events, we post from events. I'm not worried about keeping that photo because we have a professional photographer at that event. But sorry, did I answer the question yet? I think that making sure you have the content and producing it first is probably best practice at this point. Unless it's like a specific case by case, I would say like posting an Instagram story or doing an Instagram live or a TikTok live. Those are good. And I would say if you can save that content to save it, it would really just be like a situation by situation. But for the most part, I think producing that content first makes the most sense.
Good. And not everybody has 2 people with cameras,
Right.
phones at the same event, especially if you're working in a small shop. But you and Melissa, you've both done podcasts for a client, or in Melissa, your case,
The mayor and I, we
organization.
have a monthly podcast that is produced by Campbell Media. So we film that first, and it can be edited. So they have all of that, you know, on tape in case we ever need it again. But when I do all of my other content, I definitely always film it first because I like to edit it and have all the pictures and videos and then upload it. So.
Yeah, and I think especially in terms of podcasts, you see a lot of people will go live or they'll have specifically like a live show. I think a lot of podcasts, especially the one that we do, we work with a lot of small businesses. So it's really comforting for me to say like, hey, this is not live. I will edit this. It takes a lot of pressure off, especially if you're just starting out. It takes a lot of the pressure off, especially if you're someone that's going to have like guests rotating through. I would say there's like the phrase that like it's PR, not the ER. I think that can really apply to like a podcast situation. Like it's kind of fun if you wanted to do one live, or if you were going to do a live show, if you have a following and like tap in to that community and do an event based around it. But for the most part, I would say like if you're going to do a podcast, you can edit it down. I think especially like concise podcasts are really nice. Though some people have 3-hour-long ones, but.
So are they predominantly all audio, or do you also have a video element? So does it become a vlog or just a audio podcast?
So ours is video and audio, and for us, we get most of our viewership through Facebook video. So they used to run that as a Facebook Live. I stopped doing that when I took over 4 years ago because it stressed me out. And I needed more time than that because I was not just doing the podcast. So we do post it, like we edit it, we do promotional content, it goes live on our Facebook page and up on Spotify and goes out to an RRS feed. And Melissa, I believe
Yeah.
yours is the same.
Ours is the same as well. We do video and audio.
YouTube, do you also post to YouTube as
Yeah.
well? It seems like there's multiple platform opportunities particularly, but a solely audio podcast usually has to go to a podcast provider or SoundCloud or some place like that where they can get it. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
nobody wants to look at a blank screen on YouTube and just listen to audio all the time.
yeah, and I think it's really finding a different way to like meet where your audience is, because so ours goes up on Spotify and then it goes everywhere audio wise, and then we have the video version that goes up on YouTube and on our Facebook. And we have found we have a really core audience of listeners only. We have an audience, I would say we have probably like 20 to 30 people that only listen every week, and it varies based on who our guests are. But it's like the same people that like always listen every single week, which is nice that we're reaching them there. And then our Facebook audience, changes a lot, because when we're tagging our guests on Facebook, they'll share it to their page. So we reach a lot of different audiences on Facebook, but we still have our own core like audio listeners.
Okay, good. Let me open it up to the floor and see if anybody has any questions. Any questions for our panel? Dominic?
I was going to ask, when doing the editing process for podcasts, what would you say the hardest part with doing that?
Is it me stumbling over my own words? I would say, because like I mentioned, we work with a lot of small businesses, it can be kind of difficult to make them feel comfortable, and like we try to give them notes ahead of time, and sometimes people like stare down the camera, and like the whole time I'm like, please look back at me. Like you do not need to be like looking down the barrel of the camera, because our podcast doesn't run like that. Some other ones, like I'm thinking like New Heights, they're looking at a camera, they're talking to each other via Zoom, but for us, we're sitting in a room together. So it's a little different. I think that would be my biggest issue in terms of editing. There's so many softwares that make like the actual like cutting and editing and splicing process really easy. But our podcast is really short. It's only like a 30 to 45 minute runtime. We edit in iMovie, and we do that pretty easily.
So have any of you ever had like a public relations like crisis happen at work? If so, like what did you do?
Well, a crisis, and I'm sure city and institution people might be able to speak to this too, but a crisis can come in a lot of different forms and shapes. So the thing about like a crisis is about communicating and keeping audiences informed. So it's about fast movement, taking action right away. One example that I could, you never want to like let people know that a PR firm was involved. I think the key with a crisis is quick action and communication, and being ready before the crisis. Having a crisis communication plan, having an order of operations, having a phone tree that says, if we detect a crisis, this is the process, this is who we call, this is who's allowed to speak with the media. If the media contacts you, this is who you are to give them to. What are the key things? What's our statement? A lot of times when there's a crisis, you know it's coming, so you can quickly prepare. But a big chunk of the time you don't know it's coming, and it's 2:30 in the morning. So it's hard to be specific about it. I did have a crisis. I guess I could share it. So we had a major political figure at an event we had, who during that event on camera had a spell of sorts, like a fainting spell. He is a very important political figure, so it really took the world by storm. And so trying to navigate the response in a quick amount of time was pertinent, but there were a lot of people involved, right? They had their own team of folks, and so making sure that we were in touch with them and supporting them and directing all of the attention to their folks. They're tricky. I don't know if you guys want to talk about any that you have.
when I was in Central Virginia, we had Barnes & Noble took over our campus bookstore. There was a lot of opposition to that of, again, a faith-based institution and Barnes & Noble. Are there going to be conflicts of interest with what you can do? There was an individual in the community that ordered, and so semantics is important here. They went to the local media and said, we ordered this book from university. The porn has got to stop. It was a pornographic book. There was nothing wrong with what they said. They did order that book, but what they failed to say is it was intercepted by the employee at Barnes & Noble. That order never went through. He did not get that book or purchase it from our university bookstore. It was purchased from Barnes & Noble. So then the perception in the community was, oh, this university, oh, what are they doing? You know, it became a big crisis for us. Our founder and chancellor was in the hospital that week, and when it happened, they had staged the media interview right on the edge of campus where it was public property, so you could see the campus in the background. And needless to say, our president and chancellor checked himself out of the hospital and did a media interview to set the record straight. But really be careful with perception and the semantics that are used, because people can infer and think something that may or may not be true, but there's a lot of responsibility that comes with the role that you do.
Sorry. Well, and I think that's part of the reason you have to act so quickly, because in silence, people make their own assumptions, right? And then they begin to talk and percolate, and now this is the truth when it's not, or they think you're hiding something because you haven't responded yet, or they start going out and finding their own sources who are willing to talk. So maybe a former employee, an expert on this thing. And so you want to be a part of it and at the forefront of getting out the correct information and letting them know where things are, because silence is a killer in a crisis.
Yeah, especially as someone who has been on the other side, like reporting on things that have happened. We actually had we had a training on crisis communication planning and PR when I came to Scooter Media, and I was like, wow, there are so many businesses in Northern Kentucky and Greater Cincinnati that need to take this little lesson, because nothing is worse than like calling a business and somebody on the phone being like, oh, well, I don't know what to tell you. And you're like, okay, well, like, is that on the record or not? So I think the importance is, especially as you grow in your careers and you get employed with businesses, like making sure you know what the plan is and making sure there is a plan. Like that, the importance of that cannot be understated.
Yeah, and during a crisis, I would say it's very important to be available. Like, say there's a flood on the river.
Yeah.
Just being available to the officials and everyone in the city to get that information out. I mean, because it might be at 7 a.m. or 6 p.m. on a Sunday. So.
Yeah.
When y'all post things to Facebook, do you automatically also post it to Twitter and Instagram, or is it a different audience so you'd have to tweak it a little bit before you send it out?
I can answer that one. I think it depends. Obviously on Twitter X, it's shorter content. I would say the biggest one that we kind of tweak for would be Instagram, because we're posting like a lot of different, like our Instagram content for a lot of clients is really different than what we're posting on Facebook and on LinkedIn. I would say like for a lot of our clients, we're posting similar content, but some stuff doesn't like make it to LinkedIn, or some stuff is only on Facebook. Like for our, for Scooter Media's social media, for example, today was somebody's birthday. We post that on Facebook and we post that on Instagram, but we don't post it on LinkedIn. But for like staff anniversaries, we post that on Facebook and we post it on LinkedIn, but we don't post it on Instagram. So it really does depend. And I think one of the big things in determining whether or not you want to differentiate, one is like how much time and capacity you have to be writing like double the amount of content, and two, actually looking at your audiences. So if you're Facebook's social media demographic information has changed a lot since I got into social media many moons ago, but on LinkedIn specifically, like you can really tailor that content to the audience you have, if it's a niche enough audience. If you're like a nonprofit and you're meeting people, like I think a lot for our nonprofit clients. Like our Facebook content is really forward facing to like clients of theirs, like people using the services of that nonprofit. But on LinkedIn, we're fundraising to donors, right? So like that content's going to be a lot different. But for like a chamber of commerce, it's all like people that are using those member services. So that content's really similar.
Yeah, similar for the City of Bellevue. Bellevue is such a Facebook town that we don't post everything on Instagram and LinkedIn, but like Sarah said, we do tailor it to the specific circumstances.
Pretty much the same, and you have to take into account your staffing and your availability and the hours that it takes. We would love to be able to do a lot more on all the different platforms, but with a limited staff that have other responsibilities too, you've got to really prioritize well and know what's working well with your audience. Blue sky, when that came, you know, okay, we've got to reserve from a brand perspective and have this count. So we want to go do it. I can't even tell you the last time we even opened Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Threads is kind of the same, you know, just, you know, there's different priorities and along with the staffing that you have to help judge that, but really audience is key.
Questions?
What's your day-to-day life look like?
I love it. So I love agency life. I tried to work in-house. I can't. I love chaos and craziness and variety and change. And so what I love about working at an agency is every single day is different, right? I could show up to work and I might have a couple of meetings. Today I worked on a magazine. I worked on an annual report on the writing side, meeting with the designer to talk about layout. I also wrote some social media copy with Sarah for one of our clients. I wrote a media alert about a Bengals player. And then I came here and I did this. When I get back, I'll have some stuff waiting for me to review. I have an event for a client I'm going to tonight where I'll take pictures. So I love it because I also go to work with my list of things to do, but my day will be filled with other things to do that I don't even know about. I just really enjoy variety. And so if you do, I think communications is a great place to be because as we've all talked about, there's so much in our jobs that's different every single day.
Yeah, other duties is assigned as like a whole thing. I would say my day is like a little bit more straightforward than Shannon's is. Most days I have, I wake up, do community checks for my clients, make sure my content is scheduled for the day if I haven't pre-scheduled it. Midday, I either have like a client meeting with a client or I have an internal meeting with the staff to talk about where we are for the week. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I do podcast interviews. I usually have 1 to 2 a day, just on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then if it's a week where we do have a podcast, I'll write like marketing materials for that. I do reporting as needed and things like that. But a lot of my day, it's spent checking email and responding to pings and knocking things off my to-do list, slacking, sending emojis in the Slack channels. And then I would say I also do a little bit of like my midday is always like, what things do I have on my to-do list to knock off? So that's either making graphics, editing the podcast and marketing materials, and then like doing graphic design and things like that. And then I sign off for the day. So and not as chaotic as Shannon's, but it does change almost every day.
Yeah, I would say my days are kind of similar to Shannon's. They're a little crazy. Constant every morning at 7:30 a.m. the mayor calls me and we talk about what are the most important priorities for the day. You know, I'll be planning events, working with media, filming our podcasts. I also help the police and the fire department with their messaging and their social media. So just kind of prioritizing what is the most important thing that day. And we could get hit with anything like a flood or a bridge fire or who knows. So always ready for what's coming my way.
We often say working in this field, you're the face of blank, whatever the university, the organization, the nonprofit. So no matter what you're doing, where you are, people are always watching. If I put on our director of comms PR hat, very similar, there's no such thing as a typical day, But I'd also add in, we're very cognizant of our competitors. Higher ed is a very competitive space. So there's media monitoring software that are out there and tools that are available to know what competitors are doing or not doing, mentions that they have and things, and looking into things like a share of voice and, you know, where do we land amongst our competitors too is a big piece of what she does as well.
Other questions? Anyone? All right. Let me bring up the B word, brand. Talk about your worst brand issues or crises, I guess, when it comes to that.
I don't have a crisis, but I think the hardest thing with a brand and a business is keeping everybody on brand, right? And being the brand police, which we are for a lot of our clients. You know, people are like, well, I can just whip this together. I can go into Canva and make this flyer. But there are brand standards. You cannot use any font you want just because it's Christmas. You cannot change the colors of a logo. There are rules within what we do for each brand that need to be followed because there is a look and a feel and a persona and an audience. And so I think one of the biggest challenges with some clients is helping them monitor that brand and keep it in check so that the voice is consistent. How everything coming from us should look and feel and make you think of that client and that brand instantly. You shouldn't see something and be like, what? Right? It should be instantly recognizable. And for us, learning new brands, it's one of the most important things that we have to do when we onboard with a new client because we need to be them, right? I need to be the voice of Gold Star Chili. I need to be the voice of the Northern Kentucky Chamber. In those moments, I am not Scooter, right? So how do I make sure that that is coming across clear and consistent?
I would say for us, obviously we have a client that specifically calls Shannan the fun police because she tells them no all the time when they do things like that, which is fun. But one of the things I am seeing for brands specifically is with the AI boom, and a lot of teams are really strapped. The amount of content, and you guys are younger, obviously, you're college students, like how quickly I can clock something is like bad AI copy or like bad AI branding that I'm like, who wrote this? Obviously a computer. Who read this? Obviously no one. And then it's out and it looks bad. It looks bad and it looks horrible on your brand and reflects badly on people. We use AI. I'm not going to lie about that. We use it to make our lives easier. It's a tool, but it goes through checks. And I think that's one of the most important things that a lot of businesses aren't doing right now is they are just like, well, I know I need to do this. I have to do this. I have to get this out there. But I think it can really damage you. Like I would really caution people to like do less, but do less better. You don't have to be on every single platform. You don't have to post every single day. As long as that content's there and that content's good, speaking specifically about social media when it comes to branding. But like there's some things I'll see and I'm like, oh, well, like that looks off. And then for me, when I see that, especially as a consumer, I'm like, well, I don't like, are you quality checking your actual products? Like, are you giving care to the things that you're actually doing? And I think that's something that when it comes to brand globally, we're seeing a lot of, especially as creatives are getting laid off, copywriters have gone to the wayside. You know, people are firing their graphic design departments and just using Canva or Adobe AI. I think it's really important that we still have people to like check and be consistent and put the like forward face of your brand out there and make it look nice and good. And otherwise people are just gonna be like, well, I don't know if I can trust this. And that's something that I'm seeing from our competitors and other people in the region, not just nationally or globally.
Yeah, I think staying on brand is so important. Like they both made very important points, being the brand police. I know I've seen some flyers and posters around town that have come out of the city, and I'm like, who made these? Because what font is that? So I gave our assistant city administrator some files in Canva, and I'm like, these are the fonts, these are the colors. If you put anything out, it has to go through this and also me.
I think getting everyone within your organization or community on board is probably the biggest challenge. Not everyone understands the why. I think you've clearly seen how passionate all of us are and the importance of it, but really conveying that to others. And, well, it's just a logo. No, it's not just another logo. So really helping people understand the why behind it and why it's so crucial and important. And here's what you can do, not always here's what you're doing wrong or don't keep doing this, but really getting that buy-in. And it starts with the leadership, and having that leadership support from the top down really can help make it easier. But brand is so important.
I also have one more thing on this note too, is, and I'm thinking social media again. A lot of times in like social media scams are really big. You have a lot of, actually, I believe Thomas More had like a pretty big issue a couple years ago. I believe I remember a pretty big issue when it comes to like scamming and hacking. One of the things I think that is helpful, if you're really consistent with your brand, people will be able to clock that something is wrong. Like very quickly, people will be like, oh, well, that post is weird. What's going on there? And then that's going to help your community flag it up the proper channels. In working in Facebook, like we've mentioned, it's kind of impossible to get in touch with like a real human person at Meta. I don't actually think they exist anymore. But people who know you and know your brand and respect your brand will be able to clock that something's wrong. And like, especially if you're like, oh, well, I need like donations on all this stuff, like that helps them. It's like flagging that they need to know that something's wrong. I think I just said that like the same way 3 times, but that's a big one.
How about for branding for individuals, particularly these young, new professionals in the next couple of years, setting up with their own brand of whatever profession that they're looking to go into, even if they start out an entry level somewhere. What recommendations do you have for them for setting up their own brand?
I think it's very important, again, knowing your audience. LinkedIn, anytime somebody applies for a position within an organization that I've been to, social media is one of the first places I go to and check. Even if you have privacy settings, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of ways you can find things out, and especially Northern Kentucky, 6 degrees of separation does not exist. I guarantee
like 2 degrees.
Exactly. You're lucky if it's 1 or 2. People, and again, you heard me say earlier, the face of, there's always somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. I'm sure if we start talking, we're going to find so many mutual connections and things, and whatever your brand is online, that becomes truth and reality for someone who doesn't know you and just sees a resume. So whatever you're posting, if it's your party pictures, your fun spring break pictures, or whatever, that's going to be found. I'm sure you've talked about your digital footprint and going through and finding all of that. It's fine to have a fun side of you and to show that, but I always caution, be very careful what you post. Going back to what you're saying, the audience that can help protect you and find you. We had a situation in another organization where someone was using a hashtag and posting highly inappropriate pictures. It wasn't on our own account. Some of our board members saw that and was thinking it was us and things, but others came to our defense. But again, there are ways to find and trace back to what you're posting. So what image do you want to portray? Especially now building up your credibility as well as your expertise. So whatever particular area, repost some of the content that you're seeing that you want to be or that you aspire to be. Add your own thoughts to it, not AI thoughts, but your own thoughts with it. That's going to help you stand apart from others that may be applying for the same roles and positions come April, May.
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn is very important, and anytime you step out of your house, you're representing yourself and your personal brand. And for me, I'm always representing the City of Bellevue. Wherever I go, whatever I do, I live in Bellevue. So if I step out of my house, I'm representing the City of Bellevue. So I would say anything you post online, just make sure it's something that you would want potential employers to see. I would even check grammar, because
I would definitely check grammar.
Yeah, everything you do is visible.
I think if you want to work in communications, you have to be living and breathing the expertise. So I am looking at your LinkedIn to look at your grammar. I'm looking at how you've written your profile. I'm looking at your photo and what you've chosen for that, but I'm looking at what you've shared. So a lot of students, I encourage them to share stuff from class, from projects that you've done, from things you've done on campus, right? Thought leadership, what do you think about things that you've seen in the news or in the industry? Sharing those articles. I'm looking for someone who loves PR, right? And who loves this space. So are you sort of already in it? Are you in PRSSA? I'm not sure if Thomas More has a chapter of that or another type of communication club. How are you showing up already that you want to be in this field? I'm looking for those sorts of things in terms of your brand.
I have nothing to add.
Now, Sarah, you mentioned that AI is a tool that you use. How do you use it as a tool?
Yeah, so I use AI a couple of different ways. One of the ways that I found is really helpful is synthesizing a press release that I've already written into a booking memo. So if we're sending out press releases, we're sending those to TV stations, we're sending them to reporters, we're sending them all over the place. And when you do get someone who is interested, we create booking memos for the reporters and anchors and producers, so one for them, and then one for our clients internally, so that they know everything that they need to know before they go to the interview. I've found AI does a great job of, we have like a format that we use at Scooter, and I say, hey, here's the press release. Here are like the 2 or 3 focus areas that we want to focus on for this interview. Can you write up a booking memo for me for a client and for the news station? And one of the things that we have a paid account. We have a paid AI account through ChatGPT. So we, like when we're putting that stuff out there, it's not going out into the ether. It lives within our own little community, which is nice. We don't want like AI to like steal stuff before it's out on the web. Another thing I do use it for social media copy, specifically for the podcast each week. For our podcast guests, I send them an email with a photo with some social copy for their marketing purposes. We do it for them because we work with it's a lot of small businesses. They don't typically have social media teams working for them. And I have very specific instructions and parameters that I reuse every week with ChatGPT. I gave it a couple of different examples of like what type of copy I like. I hate when it puts in hashtags. I hate when it puts in emojis. I'm like, please, I'm like, please leave these things out of it. So each week I will plug in like the name of the guest, the 2 or 3 things that we talked about, and then our podcast guests come to us. They fill out a little form. And so I give them a couple snippets from the form, and then ChatGPT will write my email for me to them. I double check it, attach all the things I need to attach, hyperlink everything, and then I send it off. And did it look terribly AI when you got it many moons ago?
Did not at all. I would have never known.
And that's the goal.
I will say I use it to check myself sometimes. So I will upload a press release I've written and ask it to check it for AP style to make sure I haven't missed anything. I also upload original content constantly and ask it what questions it has after it's written it, like after it's read it. What's missing? What would you still be wondering about? What do you feel I didn't cover in this press release that should be here? Just because we're writing so much that you can forget something. So I use it a lot too to keep me on my toes. Like, what questions do you have? What questions would a business reporter have after reading this statement, right? To help me better get ahead and provide resources to the reporters and resources to my clients.
Yeah, I use it to double check things. Like I'll write stuff and I'll upload it and I'll say, can you check, make sure everything's good? Or I also have a paid ChatGPT account, and I'll say things, Melissa Morandi would write it like this. And like, in case I need to do a quick post on the go and give it all the information and say, write this caption like Melissa Morandi would write it. It knows I hate M-dashes and emojis and anything that could look slightly AI, because for me, I want to be authentic with my audience. And if I read something that's not authentic, I am just like pass. So authenticity goes a long way.
Yeah, and your brand and tone and voice and all of those things we talked about earlier within the brand guidelines are so crucial and important. I think we use it very limitedly here in marketing and communication. There's a very small niche publication that our director of comms PR, she writes something and repurposes that content and has AI help with some of the reducing of it and things, but always checking it over, and there's always changes that are done to it. So I'm not sure how much time it really saves and productivity that goes into it. I think there's a lot more to learn from it in the future, but it's not a high priority for us at this time.
Questions? Okay. One more for me. How much time and money goes into evaluating any of your efforts?
So I will say we are a PR agency, so everything we do is about time and money. We keep a record of how we spend our time every single day. And we have things that we do, like being here today. This is non-billable time that's part of our day, and we have billable time. So when we prepare proposals for our clients, it's based on how much time do we think it will take to accomplish the suite of tasks that they need. So it is very prevalent in our lives. We have to update our timesheets every day. We have some clients that are paying for a whole, just do the work and this is the flat rate. But we have some, like graphic design is hourly. So if we're working on things, that has to be tracked and billed back. So it is at the forefront of my mind because that is how we are getting paid for the work that we do, or not getting paid for the work that we are doing.
Yeah, my timesheet is a nightmare. But we do a lot of that on the reporting aspect and making sure that we're doing it right for our clients every single month. Every single client account we do reports on. So we spend a lot of time looking at what social media did well, didn't do well, how many hits we got when it comes to like media mentions. Did we snag interviews? Were they impactful? Did we send out a press release that nobody read and everybody hated, apparently? Like, what can we do? We spend a lot of time, and we do it every single month for every single client, is we sit there and we say, okay, what worked, what didn't, what can we do better? What can we stop doing? That's a big one. It's Scooter Media. We do it internally for us too. I had a really great idea. I was like, we want to post on social media about our team. How about everybody submit like 2 or 3 holiday days that they care about, and then we'll have them submit a picture and a description, and then we'll post like 2 of them for every person. And I loved that project. I really wanted it to work, and nobody cared. And we were putting in a lot of time to do them. Like every week I was like hounding people. And then like we got like 2 likes on Facebook, and I was like, I'm not doing this. Like no one cares that I love National Quilt Day, and it's a bummer, but no one cares. And so you have to do that, especially with your clients when you are billing them. You want your time to be spent well. Like you don't just want to be doing things to like be doing them because you are checking a box. So that is something that like with our client teams we think about a lot. Yeah.
I would think from the entrepreneur side and the agency side too, it's also about capacity. So by watching the billing and the hours, I'm able to tell if we can bring on new work because Sarah has capacity, or, oh my gosh, Sarah is drowning. I need to reallocate some of her work. We need to bring in new people. So for us, it's also about employee management and where do we need to hire? How are we spending our time? What are the things that we're working on and not working on? So it helps run the business as well.
Well, our team is very small, so capacity, maximum return on your time, those are always things that I'm thinking of since I wear so many hats. Just kind of managing that to the best of your ability. We don't have any sort of paid tracking system, so everything I do is manual or looking at the reports manually, doing the reports on Facebook and Instagram. The mayor likes to see those numbers, so we're always doing those.
Similar to what some of you have said, but we don't bill clients, we don't bill internal teams, but we're looking at that earned media value. If we were to pay for advertising on Local 12, WCPO, Channel 9, what is that ad equivalency value for us? We have a camera on top of this building, a weather cam with Local 12. So we're looking at all those mentions. What is that equivalency? What are we paying for that? What are we getting for that? Is that something we want to continue? Is it worthwhile? That's more of kind of what we're looking for on that ROI side of things in the PR realm.
As long as they don't identify us as Thomas More College.
College,
right?
yes.
All
Thank you.
right. Does anybody have any more questions? Do y'all have anything more to add? Maybe closing statements as far as the future of public relations and why it might be important for any of these students to consider a career there?
Well, I will say I believe that PR is one of the most important roles you can have, because literally we touch every aspect of a business, all the way up to C-suite, right? We have access to the president. We have access to the employees. We are an integral part of sales. We are part of employee communications. It is the one job, in my opinion, that you really have an opportunity to have a great impact on the organization of which you go. And you can do so much with it, and there is so much variety. You can work in-house, you can work at an agency, you can be at an integrated agency, you could do financial comms, tech comms, healthcare comms. Like, the sky's the limit. If you're interested in baseball, great, you can go work in sports comms. Like, you really can take this job anywhere and have such a major impact on the organization. I know I'm biased because I work in it, but I truly love it. I love it. I think it's a great choice.
I think it's important. Like I said, my background's in journalism. I have a very serious passion for community news and the importance of people knowing about their communities and being active in their local communities. And I think one of the reasons why I came to Scooter specifically is because the organizations we work with, we care about them. We want to get the word out about the work that they're doing. I think specifically about like the great work that our nonprofit clients are doing. And the public wants to know about what is happening around them. And I think there's a gap there everywhere, really. We have a lot of really great news organizations here in the greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area. Like when I was at the Inquirer, we joke about how newsy of a town it is because we have so many TV stations and so many other news organizations. But I think it's really important, like PR practitioners, not only are you helping the businesses around you, I think you're also like helping impact your community. And I feel that every day. Like we work with businesses through the Chamber of Commerce and like working with small businesses, and when they get to work with us, whether they're on the podcast or we spotlight them on our social media spotlight or they're in the business journal, like that helps their bottom line, that helps that business, and it gets them in touch with people in the community. And I think that's like one of the reasons why when like in journalism you joke that like PR is the dark side, and I really did think that for a while, but I think it is it's just as important. Like you are helping not only the businesses you're working for, the organizations or your agency, like you are making an impact on your community, or you can if you're doing it right.
Yeah, I think there's all different ways to communicate and make an impact in your community. And the way the world is now, people, they need communications more now than ever. So I think it's such an important field to go into, and I'm glad you are all considering it.
I would say always maintain your integrity above everything else. Even if it costs your job, your organization, that's probably not where you want to be long term anyway. But as graduates of Thomas More, don't forget why you chose to be here and the mission here of the ultimate meaning of truth, your place in this world, and your responsibility to others. Carry that with you no matter what you choose.
All right, very good. Thank you.